Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. It became official late last night. DeAndre Hunter will be coming to the Cavaliers as part of a trade. Cavs send Karis LeVert, George Niang, and 3 second-round picks to acquire Hunter. Hunter, very familiar with Ty Jerome. They were teammates on Virginia's national championship team back in college. Ty Jerome, obviously, on the bench for the Cavs, one of their super subs. Koby Altman, general manager, on what Hunter brings to the Cavs.
DeAndre Hunter brings tremendous defensive versatility. And I would urge everyone on this call to watch his last game in an Atlanta Hawks uniform when they put him on Victor Wembanyama to guard. Not the easiest cover in the world, if you can imagine. But that showed you his versatility just in terms of guarding fives all the way to perimeter guards, to wings. We're very familiar with DeAndre going back to UVA in his days there. Obviously, defense was his calling card back then, but he's super talented offensively, 3-level scorer. Low usage, so he fits with our guys, our team currently. But he can make a shot. He can put the ball on the floor. He can put pressure on the rim. And so all of that mixed in with the price in terms of what we had to give up to get DeAndre Hunter, got me to the point where I was ready to make this kind of move.
So by all accounts, Hunter is the best fit for what the Cavs need relative to becoming even better and a championship contender. Koby Altman admitted, the locker room chemistry was something that, he took into account, but explained his thinking on why exactly that he decided the trade for Hunter was best.
We've had success against good teams. We've had some elite wins. We've had some tough losses against those teams. This is when you get to a 7-game series against, you name the team, giving Kenny every tool in the box to use to win that series. And DeAndre can play small, right? He can play up into a 4-man. He can guard 4s. He can guard some 5s, or you can switch with him. And then you can move him to the 2 or 3. This just gives you a chance to move stuff around the chessboard and be able to play multiple different ways in a playoff series, regardless of what that matchup could be.
And again, I think Koby Altman is basically, by this trade, telling the locker room, the guys in that locker room, we are championship contenders right now. Next up for the NBA, including the Cavs, the buyout market, and there's some talk that this guy is on the radar. Ben Simmons finalizing a contract buyout from the Nets. He will meet with the Cavs and Clippers Friday, today. Also said to be talking to the Rockets about where he will go after that buyout becomes complete. So very interesting. And another big athletic guy that can play defense, Ben Simmons, could be added. After the trade, Cavs have a couple of spots on their roster available. National analyst Charles Barkley from TNT on how he views the Cavs after this Hunter trade.
I'm going to really look hard at the Cleveland Cavaliers the next couple of weeks because I really do think the DeAndre Hunter trade makes them the team to beat in the East. I really do. I mean, they were already playing great. I thought they would mention one thing. We got to have some scoring off the bench. To go out and get a player as good as DeAndre Hunter and don't give up anything, I think that was a home run by the Cavs. So if I'm telling you right now, I'm going to have to change my pick. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are the front runner in the East now.
Charles Barkley with where he views the Cavs after that trade. We'll have more on the Cavs a little bit later with Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. All right, on to the Browns. Now, some news from around the NFL relative to some quarterbacks. Steelers not going to re-sign Russell Wilson, according to several reports. So a veteran that could be available, Russell Wilson. Remember, Wilson would not waive his no-trade clause when the Browns tried to acquire him when he ended up going to the Broncos. So, again, keep that in mind. Andrew Hawkins, NFL Live, with the thought of a quarterback that should be on the market that would likely interest the Browns?
Dan, you ready for this? I think the Rams should explore trading Matthew Stafford.
What?
With Cooper Kupp gone, for me, this puts the Rams further away from a Super Bowl appearance. And for Matthew Stafford, yes, he's top 5 quarterback in the NFL, 37 years old. He's going to be as valuable as he's ever going to be at this point. I think you explore getting a king's ransom from one of these quarterback-needy teams that aren't in position to get one in the draft.
Now, there has been some talk that Stafford might become available. The question becomes, who becomes the quarterback for the Rams if they trade him? So, you know, I suppose you could do a Sam Darnold signing, 37 years old. But certainly, if Matthew Stafford is on the trade market, the Browns should be making some calls to see what they might be able to do to get Stafford. All right, Cam Ward, one of the guys that will be one of the top 2 quarterbacks taken in this draft, was asked which of the top 3 teams, so the Titans, Browns, and Giants, are closest to being Super Bowl contenders.
Who do you think close to a ring out of Tennessee, Cleveland, and New York? Whichever one draft Cam Ward, that's
Myles Garrett going to Cleveland, bro.
Yeah, he not leaving.
He gone.
They finna get rid of him.
He requested a trade.
Yeah, he can request it, but that don't mean he can go.
I absolutely love Cam Ward's answer. Whoever drafts him is closest to being in the Super Bowl, and also saying, you can request a trade, but so Cam Ward's shown some veteran savvy. More news about the Browns rounding out the coaching staff. They did, in fact, hire Christian Jones as their tight end coach, according to sources. That reunites Jones with Stefanski, former coworker, when they were with the Vikings. That's from Mike Garafolo. It's another sign of 2 things. When you surround yourself with guys you're familiar with, Kevin Stefanski's going back to the offense that he knows and coaches. And Kevin Stefanski realizes they got to turn around, they got to win. When you bring in guys you're familiar with, it's to get back to what you know and to focus on winning. The Athletic came out with one last free agent to add for each of the Major League Baseball teams. So a last free agent in free agency. For the Cleveland Guardians, they went with Kiki Hernandez from the Giants. Can play center, can play second base. Defensively, they say center field Guardians' most glaring need in terms of experience. They're thinnest at second base. Everyday lineup includes only strictly one right-handed hitter. Hernandez would address all of that. Would be their best defensive option in center, most experienced option at second, and another right-handed bat on a roster loaded with lefties and switch hitters. Maybe Lane Thomas would still play center field against righties. Hernandez could be there against lefties. He would also give them some insurance in case the youngster, Juan Brito, not ready to play second base on an everyday basis. So Kiki Hernandez, an interesting name relative to one last free agent for each major league team for the Guardians, that according to The Athletic. We're going to take a quick time out. We go back. We'll talk plenty of Browns, a little bit of Cavs. G. Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show ahead after this break. Stay with us on Sports4CLE.
Are you ready? The Ohio Lottery is about to unleash 50 new millionaires on Ohio. Want a chance to become one? Play VIP Millions. With 50 $1 million winning tickets, it's your best chance to win $1 million ever.
We turn our attention to the Browns on Sports4CLE. Chad Ochocinco from Super Bowl's press row talking about the Myles Garrett trade request.
I knew it was coming at some point. In order to compete for a Super Bowl, for one, defense, you can do all you do. You can do all you can. You can be the greatest defense end of all time. But until you have someone on the other side of that ball that gives you that chance and opportunity to reach a Lombardi or get there, he understands that. He understands that. And right now, his career, I wouldn't say it's going to waste because he's playing very well. He's playing very well. If he was to be, say if it was the end of the day, he's still a Hall of Famer. He's still a Hall of Famer. But he understands that in order to contend for a in order to contend for a Lombardi, a trophy, or even have a chance, you got to be in a position, for one, a team that has a quarterback.
Yes.
You got to. And so he understands that. So I understand him requesting his trade. I knew that was going to happen, especially after the quarterback carousel that he's had to deal with, for how many years now?
Well, I think Myles came in what, 2017?
I mean, ain't no telling how many quarterbacks he's had to deal with, and now, it's come to a head. You know what? I don't have that many more years left. I need to go somewhere where I can contend for a Super Bowl. I gave Cleveland all I can to this point.
Let's welcome in G. Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and the Barbershop. G. Bush, I get it. It all comes down to Myles wants a quarterback.
Yeah, that's it. You look at what we got on for the Super Bowl. You got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and your guy Pat Mahomes. Also, obviously, you have a guy like Jalen Hurts, who's been to 2 Super Bowls, and you just look at the climate that we're in. And here's the thing that I always stood very. It sat with me. We've had arguably, we say it's built in the trenches. We've arguably had one of the best offensive tackles in the game in Joe Thomas, a Hall of Famer. He's top 3, in my opinion. We've also had a guy like Myles Garrett, who right now is the best defensive player in the league. Also, he could go down as a top 3 edge rusher or defensive player in this league. And guess what? Both of those guys have been with the Browns. They've been with the Browns their entire career. And Joe Thomas never went to the playoffs. Myles Garrett has 1 playoff victory. When you look at the quarterback position in the carousel, as Ocho Cinco puts it, he's had guys come in here, and we went 1-31 to get the Baker Mayfields, to get the draft capital, and said we've gone out and got the Deshaun Watsons, and it hasn't worked. So when he goes in and talks to Andrew Berry, and the conversation turns to, what are you guys doing for me? What are we going to do as far as this plan and getting a quarterback? Please don't tell me it's bringing back Jameis Winston and DTR and figuring out if we can go get a retread quarterback. What are we doing here? And guess what? The plan might have been, hey, look, we want to draft Travis Hunter, or we want to draft Abdul Carter, or hey, we want to trade down, or maybe we want to look at a guy in the 4th or 5th round. And that plan is not stomachable by a guy who has a limited amount of time and opportunity to make the most of his career. And I don't blame Myles Garrett. And as a matter of fact, as I talked about it before, and I've known this coming up on 2 years, I was reached out to by a main member, one of the top guys in Myles Garrett camp 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. And they talked about, and this is the exact quote. He said, I'm not going to let Myles become Joe Thomas. And when I heard that, I knew at that point, the clock is ticking. So people would say, man, G. Bush, why are you so upset when, the Browns are winning? And I said, listen, guys, there's collateral damage when it comes to this. Because that's why right now, when Myles Garrett said he wants to move and people are saying, where did this come from? This has been something that Myles Garrett has been consistently talking to his team, to his family, and to the Cleveland Browns about for the last 2 to 3 years. That's why it was so frustrating a couple of years ago when Deshaun Watson got suspended for 11 games, because that basically put a whole, I call it a gentleman's punt. You punted on that season because you didn't have Deshaun Watson. Last year, even though they made the playoffs, and a lot of people don't get this, they made the playoffs with 5 different quarterbacks. That had a lot to do with the way the defense played in the beginning of the year and the fluky nature of the way they played and the way the games, dropped down the line. You had Joe Flacco, who had a little bit of, lightning in a bottle, and you ended up making a run and made the playoffs. But for guys like Myles Garrett, you went into a game against a team against the Houston Texans, who, by the way, have made the playoffs in the last 2 years. They had a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud, and they blew the doors off of you. So how much you can't sell that as progress, because everyone knows you can't duplicate that. You can't duplicate 5 different quarterbacks and the defense playing lights out as a blueprint to winning games. So when then they viewed that as a punted season, you get to this season, and we know what it was. It was a mitigated disaster. So that is why Myles Garrett is looking at this as a 2 to 3 year process, not just, I just woke up yesterday and found out that we weren't good and I want to be out of here.
So this is from ML Football. And there's some rumors that Matthew Stafford is not terribly happy in L.A. And so they propose Myles Garrett and a 2025 third-round pick for Matthew Stafford and a 2026 first-round pick. That kind of defeats the purpose. You get the quarter. If you can find a way to get Matthew Stafford over here, that might make Myles Garrett say, all right, now I can sit a little bit and see if the guy they draft as a quarterback can develop.
Look, Myles Garrett, the way it sounds like to me is, he's like, hey, you got the number 2 pick. Why don't y'all take that number 2 pick and find me a quarterback? And the Browns are like, oh, that wasn't quite in our plans. You did say that. If you could get Matt Stafford, I think that would keep Myles Garrett, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think he'd have a lot to say about that. But this trade, on the other hand, as you look at it as proposed, I don't think that Matt Stafford's not going to want to come here. He has his wife is definitely not going to want to come here. And you look at what the Rams have, they got a better offense. Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, they got a bunch of different things. And for the Rams, trading Matt Stafford does not keep you. If you just get Myles Garrett and you need a quarterback, what's their option at quarterback?
Yep.
I mean, you just have Myles Garrett and who? No, that trade seems a little far-fetched to me. I don't think either side gets exactly what they want with that. And by the way, how many years does Matt Stafford have left in the tank anyway?
Yeah, he's 37. He'll be 38 during the year, so not a lot. He's not, and he's more beat up than Tom Brady. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one's kind of interesting. We'll see what you think here.
Yeah, this is about the offensive line. Like, there's a narrative being like it looked better with Jameson than the other than Deshaun, because Deshaun was stressing. But I don't think that was the case. First of all season, the offensive line, especially at the beginning of the year, was not even healthy. So the offensive line looked better at times when it was healthy, but in general, like, it just hasn't been healthy all year long. Yes, age play a factor when it wasn't good when it was healthy, but the offensive line was not healthy coming to the season. Andy Dickerson did not have the whole offensive line coached right way because we got miscommunication, this and that, and your line got to be healthy for your quarterback to be comfortable in the pocket. And eventually Watson at times was not comfortable because he didn't trust his line and who was blocking for him. And make a difference when they're healthy. So that's all I got to say. You guys have a good one. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. G. Bush, health had something to do with it. They were asking them to do different things. They were asking offensive linemen to kind of, when you run RPO, you're asking big guys to dance. You can't fire out because if you get more than a yard downfield, it's ineligible man downfield. So that's not what offensive linemen want to do. They want to get up and knock people down. And that's kind of, in a very simplistic way, that's going back to the Kevin Stefanski offense. We're not going to RPO. We're going to ask big guys to go knock people down.
Yeah, what they were asking them to do was not only were they asking them to do RPO stuff, I mean, they were doing 5-step drop backs. And obviously, if you're a team that's built on play action and running the ball, play action slows down the pass rush, so you don't have guys that are in predictable downs and distances just pinning their ears back, rushing the quarterback. Also, you have to take a look at this. When you look at Deshaun Watson, he held the ball more than anybody as a starting quarterback. He looks to extend plays. That used to be part of his game. But when you lose a step and you're not as sure as yourself outside the pocket and inside of the pocket, you're going to hold the ball more. And so some of the sacks and some of the things that, they got that were put on the offensive line were basically due to holding the ball, and some of those things all compound. And now you have a situation where you're doing RPOs. You're not running the ball as consistently. There's no play action to mix it up. You're doing 5 to 7-step drops. Your quarterback is trying to extend plays. That's not a good recipe for an offensive line that was known for being maulers with big guards and big husky tackles that want to get downhill, that want to use Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt to kind of play these games. And now you got the pullers and you're knocking guys in the mouth. And now all of a sudden, when it's 3rd and 2 or 2nd and 3, you see the big time play action, the boots, the deep comebacks, the deep crosses that are perfect complementary parts and passes to the play action game, and you don't have that. So to me, the Cleveland Browns need to go back to what they do specifically up front. And, Andy Dickerson, I thought was, that set them back a couple of years on face value. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what kind of line steps. To be truthful, there were guys that were just running free. I don't know if guys were confused on their assignments. Simple stunts like text and twist and, all of a sudden guys are confused and guys are coming free. I just think they need to overhaul the running game concepts. They need to figure out what they're doing in protection schemes, and they need to get back to running some of those things that they're comfortable with that you do when you got a more of a run blocking style play action offensive line.
So Denzel Ward was on Radio Row, talked a little bit about the Myles Garrett trade with Crest. Also about what he thinks about playing for Jim Schwartz as a defensive coordinator.
I love Coach Schwartz. He's going to keep it real with you. Right. And I think he's a great play caller, great coach. Help improve my game tremendously, I feel like. But, like I say, he's a great coach. We know we're going to be in man-to-man.
You know it.
I'm going to have to talk to him. We got to sprinkle in a
little bit more zone.
That's
where I was going. Do you ever go like, hey, we can play zone. I don't have to cover everybody and be in their face.
Yeah, but, I think they try to put their best guys in the best position to win. So I appreciate that. But definitely having that balance and being able to play man, play zone is a good thing, though, as well.
And, G. Bush, I put that in because I think that's another part of it. If you give a reasonably talented veteran quarterback to the Browns, Myles Garrett stays here and may sign an extension, in part because he knows if Jim Schwartz is his defensive coordinator, he's going to put up some numbers, and he has a chance to be Defensive Player of the Year every year he plays under Jim Schwartz.
And, here's the thing. As the Cleveland Browns, if you I've always said this, you don't replace a generational Hall of Fame player. It just doesn't happen. And when you look at his production, it's 100+ sacks. He's double-digit sacks every single year. He's the most triple teamed. He's the most double teamed. He gets the most attention. He's durable, even though sometimes he plays injured. It's just, when you have a guy like that, understand what you're saying. Think about the way the picks look better. Like, people always talk about, we could get this first-round pick for him and this first-round pick for him. Do you know the chances of you getting a first-round pick in this draft and then you selecting someone and they're a Hall of Famer? It's hard for the Browns to even find starters, let alone Pro Bowlers, let alone Hall of Famers or generational talents. If you like, and I've heard people say, if we trade him, we can get a guy like Abdul Carter and replace him. I said, listen, if you're using G. Bush and Project Stockpile, why don't you keep Myles Garrett, do everything you can to get a quarterback, and then if you want to, take Abdul Carter to put with Myles Garrett. Yep. You see how that look different? If you like, instead of talking to Denzel Ward about Myles Garrett leaving and what he's going to do, how's about saying, we're going to put you with Travis Hunter. We're going to put Denzel with Travis Hunter on the defensive side of football, and we could get something to go with Jerry Jeudy on offense. See how everything looks a little bit better? And that is the problem when you don't have a quarterback, because it minimizes all of the other things that you have on your team. Because guess what? Travis Hunter can't throw himself the ball. Myles Garrett can't score touchdowns. He blocks kicks and does all that other great stuff. He does everything but if you put him off, he'll probably score touchdowns too. But at some point, the Cleveland Browns have to realize this. Since 1999, and I hate that saying since 1999, it's almost like Terminator 2 D-Day. It's like we know what it is. But for me, like, you're going to have to find a quarterback. And if it means taking 2 quarterbacks a year, so be it. If you're going to take one and you say, I like Shedeur Sanders, great. We'll come back in the 4th round and draft Jalen Milroe or Dylan Gabriel or Curtis Rourke. Somebody. Take 2 of them and at least split the difference.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll talk a little bit more about the Browns and some about the Cavs and the trade for DeAndre Hunter. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, as well as the Barbershop. Deion Sanders, head coach of Colorado, also the dad of Shedeur Sanders, was on ESPN's First Take today talking about which quarterback in this draft he thinks is the most ready to be successful in the NFL.
If Shedeur has started every game in high school, right, every game in college except one, and he's prepared for this next level and this journey that he's about to go on, I think he's the most equipped. He's had, Cam, you know, the 7 different offensive coordinators.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, a line that was always criticized and scrutinized, but he still stood and delivered. I think he's the best one for the job for any city, and he's the most equipped. Oftentimes, we draft these quarterbacks that been on these elite teams. Now they get in a situation where it's not as conducive to their success. For sure. And they choke. He's always been up under criticism. He's always been scrutinized. He's never had the best of, but he's made the best of. So I think he's the most qualified.
That last name is what draws the criticism.
That last name is just like Sharp and Smith, Molly, and Cam. You know, our names just make people have you got to have an opinion. When they say something about us, there's always an opinion.
G-Bush, Deion also said, you know, whomever takes him, he'll leave it in God's hands, is how he put it. So it doesn't sound like he's stepping in, whether it goes 1, 2, or 3. That was before that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, look, I've always said this, and I look at it in terms of how human nature is. It's very difficult. My dad always told me, hey man, go with the girl that like you, not who you like. Man, and, you know, I married the woman who likes me. Like, your relationship gonna be pretty good if she like you, bro. That's a nice start off at a nice base level. So if somebody reaches out to Shedeur and say, listen, we like you enough that we want to take you number 2 overall, no matter what city it's in, you then put yourself in a position where it's like, hey, man, that's hard to turn down, man. Somebody's coming to you. You spent time with them. You've been out to eat with them. You practiced and you've worked out in front of them. They've had you on the whiteboard. They've had you, you know, explaining yourself. They've vetted you. And they came to a conclusion that they're putting their organization on your shoulders. It's very difficult to turn that down to say, I'm not going to play here. I'm going to play somewhere else. You know why? Because, listen, if you're a competitor and you're a person that really believes in that, if you're a person that really truly believes that I'm a competitor and I'm the best guy for the job, you know, people could say what they want. If somebody comes to you and they say, listen, we're willing to embrace you and make you our franchise quarterback, you want to go somewhere where people believe in you and people have shown they're going to invest in you. And if you do that, it's hard pressed for any athlete to turn you down and say, I'm going to go to the New York Giants, or I'm going to go because it's a big city, or no. Listen, I'm going to go where people like me at. And to be honest with you, if you play well, and you can control a lot of this, if you play well and you do your thing in Cleveland, you will be a god. They will trust me. Listen, Baker Mayfield got a cult following. He got one playoff win against Pittsburgh. And we got people wearing Tampa Bay Buccaneers jerseys now that live in Cleveland. Yeah. He got one little playoff win. Yep. And they like, listen, I'm a Bucs fan too. I watch all the 4:00 games on it. I said, since when you get that big? I'm confused, man. But if you can get it done here, they'll love you, man.
You know, the more I hear Shedeur Sanders talk, the more I'm intrigued by him. So let's see how that process plays out. All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Cavs.
Hey, what's up, Dave? This is Taylor. I just wanted to speak on today's trade with the Cavaliers and give my opinion in that I don't like it. We didn't necessarily need to make this trade. The Cavs have a winning culture. And like it was mentioned before, the guys seem to enjoy playing with each other and like being around one another. And we gave up 2 quality players just for one player who has a history of being injured. Now, the 2 players we gave up, especially Caris LeVert, he's a 6th man. He leads the 2nd unit, and he could also play as a starter, both of them when necessary. So I don't like the trade. It feels forced to me, but it is what it is. Go Cavs.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. G-Bush, I like the trade a lot. I give Kobe Altman a lot of credit. The easiest thing to do would be to sit there and say, you know, we've won 41 games. We're on pace. It's now, playoff basketball is different. And Kobe Altman explained that. And I think what Kobe Altman is telling the guys in the locker room is, we believe in you. We think you have a legitimate chance of winning an NBA championship this year. That's what, if I'm in the locker room, that's what this trade says to me if I'm one of those players.
I love the move, and I'm going to give Kobe Altman credit because I used to be tough on him last year. You know, we pushed for J.B. Bickerstaff because I felt like there was another level that this team could get to. He moved on from J.B. Bickerstaff, but he kept the core intact. Darius Garland played terrible last year. Jared Allen in the playoffs was a no-go, missing in action. People questioned his toughness. You looked at Evan Mobley and people thought, well, is Evan Mobley ever going to be this unicorn? How is he going to develop his outside shot, his aggressiveness? Is he going to be able to handle the basketball? And can you win with 2 small guards in the backcourt? And all they did is come out and dominate and come out with the best record in the league to a historical start. But like you said, it could have been the easiest thing in the world to sit pat and just, rest on your laurels and rest on the fact that your record is what it is. I think they saw them up close and personal between the 2 losses to the Hawks, the loss to Oklahoma City Thunder, and as well as the first 2 losses to the Boston Celtics. You know what they saw. And the Rockets, by the way. Sengun was very aggressive, and he dominated with all those offensive rebounds. But when you take a look at those teams that they lost to, the thing is glaring. The Cavaliers are too small in the backcourt. You have Max Strus at 6'4", 6'5", guarding Jason Tatum, some of these longer athletic guys. That wasn't going to get it done. And on top of that, you take a look at the length that these guys had in the front court. When you play in the Boston Celtics and you got Derek White, who's 6'6", you got Drew Holiday's a 6'4" guard, but he's built like a football player. And of course, you got Brown and Tatum. You're dealing with elite athleticism, elite size, and the Cavs were coming up short. How many times did you see on the switches where you would see, you would see some of the bigs like Porzingis switched on Sam Merrill, switched on Max Strus, switched on some of those guys. George Niang, and here's the thing. I'll say this too before we get to any other stuff. I want to thank Caris LeVert and I want to thank George Niang for the contributions. I know it had to be gut-wrenching to be on the team, and you're thinking about the postseason. You're an integral part. Those guys are 2 great guys, 2 great locker room dudes, and I love the fact that those guys brought that sort of culture. Caris LeVert, 6-man Swiss Army knife coming off the bench. He's an Ohio guy from Columbus. And I take a look at George Niang. George Niang was shooting the ball well. George Niang, the last couple of games, was shooting it very well. But matchup size, with all that being said, I'd make this trade 10 out of 10 times. It gives them more versatility. Hunter is 6'8". He's going to be able to guard some of those wings. He's averaging 19 points a game. And now you look at a lineup where you got 3 to 4 guys. Darius Garland averaging above 20. Donovan Mitchell giving you 20. Hunter is close to 20. And Evan Mobley and then Twin Towers now down there now with Mobley and Allen. Listen, it's a formidable front court. It's a formidable starting 5. And on top of that, you still got Dean Wade coming off the bench at almost 6'9", 6'10", who's a great defender, plus-minus defender, can shoot the 3. You still got Okoro, who's a defender on a perimeter. And, of course, you still get guys that are going to come off the bench like Sam Merrill that can knock jumpers down. And you put Hunter back with Ty Jerome, who both won a championship at the University of Virginia. You got a nice bench. You got an 8 to 9 deep. And like I said, you can continue to get deeper because now you're under the luxury tax.
Yep.
You could get up to 2 more guys to buy on the buyout market. Ben Simmons, or Bruce Brown, or Bogdanovich, Mo Bamba, names that are out there. So it's going to be a very interesting time by the All-Star break. I love the move, and I think a lot of people in Cleveland can't wait till Monday to see. Probably he'll be make his debut, but much improved roster. Looking forward to it, and I'm so excited to see what the Cavs going to do.
G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Appreciate you.
G. Bush, make sure you're checking out Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show Monday through Friday, 11 until 1. You can also catch him on Barbershop on the weekends as well. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to talk a little bit more about the NFL Draft. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We turn our attention now to the draft and the Browns. Alec Manor, wide receiver from Stanford. Big guy, runs pretty well. A little bit under the radar. Field Yates talked about him first draft, ESPN.
Great red zone player because of his size. But what I like about Alec as well is that, it's one thing to be able to run down the field fast now. Lots of guys are fast. That's why they make it to the NFL. But understanding how to separate at the second level or third level is also very important. And I've always felt like Alec found a way to get open down the field, even when a defender was in phase 15 or 20 yards past the line of scrimmage with him. The contested catches are very good. The catch radius in general is very good. I thought he was actually going to go back to Stanford for yet another season, but maybe he kind of put on his long-range lens and said, well, unless we can get Andrew Luck, our GM, under center, my production may not go up a whole lot next year. I'll be very curious what he runs at the Combine this upcoming month. I do think there's a chance that he runs a darn good time that kind of puts him back on the radar. He was not a part of either of the prominent all-star games, hasn't been talked about a ton, but unlike some of those wide receivers that I think have a chance to go or will go in late round one, Emeka Abuga, the Matthew Golden types of the world, this is a different body type, an entirely different body type. So if you're looking for a big guy with speed, Alec Manor, one of the best available in this year's class.
Let's welcome in Jacob Roach from the Orange and Brown Report. Jacob, I know you've looked at him. What are your thoughts about Manor?
Yeah, I've mocked him in a couple of drafts there in the second round to the Browns, kind of that top of the third, or top right there at pick 33. I think he's one of those guys that has that awesome size speed combination, kind of like Field talked about in that clip. I think one thing that about him flying under the radar is because his production this year did take a massive dip because the quarterback play for Stanford was just dreadful. It was not good. So it wasn't really like the sexy numbers aren't there with him. But yeah, the red zone stuff, that long arms, big catch radius, the body control to adjust to the ball when it's off target. He had a lot of off target passes that he's able to reel in this year. I just think that when you're looking at trying to build a more complete wide receiver room that has, Jerry Jeudy in it, a guy that has that speed and separation ability and a good route runner that combines everything, size, speed, athleticism, all those good things, and is able to combine it into one, you're never going to be upset drafting a guy like that.
So Senior Bowl finished up, and I know you were asked this in one of your mailbags. Who are some guys that you think performed well that the Browns could be interested in from the Senior Bowl?
I'm really interested to see what happens with Marshall's Mike Green after this week. Of course, he had that viral rep that really went and blew things up and made some people question how good Josh Connerly, the Oregon left tackle, is, even though it was just, the one rep. But he's got a really interesting blend of speed and power. You can convert between the two. And if the Browns ultimately don't go with Abdul Carter there in the second, and they maybe trade back a little bit, or Mike Green falls into the second round, I think it'd be really interesting. We had 17 sacks this year for Marshall, had a great game against Ohio State, played well against Josh Simmons, who is considered one of the best tackles in this class as well. And then on the other side, I like to highlight Josh Connerly, the left tackle from Oregon. Yeah, he had a really poor rep against Mike Green, but I think he showed just how good of an athlete he is at that left tackle position there at the Senior Bowl. And it's just a little bit, that Senior Bowl showed you how good this defensive line class is, and that there are still some offensive linemen that have a lot of upside as well.
All right, NFL.com, Cynthia Froyland did a mock draft today. She had Travis Hunter going 1, Abdul Carter going 2, Cam Ward going 3 to the Giants. She had Shedeur Sanders going all the way down at 9 to the Saints. What are your thoughts? I mean, if Abdul Carter's sitting there, regardless of what happens with Myles Garrett, what are your thoughts about the Browns taking Abdul Carter?
That's my number one preference right now. And maybe some things change when the NFL Combine comes, and maybe I get a little bit deeper into some other people's tape and I like them a little bit more than I do right now. But Abdul Carter is a special player. I was reading something from Daniel Jeremiah over the weekend that he was talking about. Most people are looking at him potentially as the best player in this class, and I think Abdul Carter is right there. I think he's got the skill to be kind of one of those truly special pass rushers at the next level, kind of like a Michael Parsons, Von Miller kind of guy. And this is a guy that's been a pass rusher for one season. He was a off-ball linebacker the last couple of years, and people think he can't defend the run. I don't think that's true. I think he has plenty of power and plenty of size. You get him into Cleveland, you let him, if he can get an even deeper bag of counters and things like that, pass rush moves, he can be a really special player.
All right. What do you think? Do the Browns trade down? What are the chances that they trade back?
I think it's pretty good. I think it's above 50%. I think that what they're probably looking for is to either do something that is a very small trade back, like they just let the Giants, they flip with the Giants from 2 to 3 and pick up like a 3rd round pick, a top 100 kind of thing. Or I think they might go down and look to get a 1st round pick in next year's class, just because you never can have enough draft assets. And if you think that somebody is willing to give you an offer that you can't refuse, and you get an extra 1 in 2026, I think you absolutely take that if it's there. And especially if it's like getting an extra 1 and you go back to 6 with Vegas, which is something that I've mocked before in some of my stuff for the OBR. I think that would just be awesome.
Who do you target if you're in that 6 to 10 range? If you're at 3, there's somebody that you like that you don't mind taking, because otherwise you don't trade from 2 to 3.
Right, absolutely. I think Mason Graham is probably towards the top, the defensive tackle from Michigan. He's probably towards the top of the list of that 6 to 10 range. If you're somewhere in there, his teammate Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, I think those two make a ton of sense if you're looking on defense. Mason Graham, to me, the Michigan defensive tackle, I keep saying that he is the safest pick in this draft, because I think he is a really phenomenal run defender. And I think he's got a lot of pass rush upside and athleticism to be a really good pass rusher. He's just not developed there. So I think his floor is an elite run defender at defensive tackle. I think that's at worst what you're getting if you take him. And then you've got Ted McMillan, I think the wide receiver from Arizona, another one of those size speed combination guys that I think could really round out this room. But those are probably the guys I'm really interested in. And that's also about the time you start talking about some of them offensive tackles.
Well, we know for certain that the Browns need a quarterback. Myles Garrett has made sure that everybody knows that. This draft, not a great one for quarterbacks. What about next year's 2026 draft? So what's that going to be like for quarterbacks?
Barring some really bad seasons in 2024 or 2025 in college, it should be a lot better. I mean, it starts with 2 guys that I had in the quarterback 3-4 conversation. Drew Aller, the Penn State quarterback, and of course Garrett Nussmeier, the LSU quarterback. Both of those guys I thought could come out this year and be really good players in the NFL long term. I just thought both of them needed more seasoning. They just need to go back and get another 12 to 13 starts under the belt. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU was a one-year starter after Jaden Daniels left. Drew Aller has had a huge jump from 23 to 24. If he can make another one of those dudes have all the tools. They know what they're doing upstairs when it comes to processing and reading defenses. I think they just need to see a little bit more, play some more football, see some more defenses, and just kind of round out the thing. Lenore Sellers, the South Carolina redshirt freshman quarterback, I think he's a very toolsy player. Cade Klubnik, Clemson's quarterback. At the beginning of the year, I would have been like, man, that's a UDFA kind of guy. And by the end of the year, he had Clemson in the playoffs, and he had some legitimate day 2 buzz before he went back. And I just think there's a lot of guys that need to make some steps in college football, but there's a lot of guys that have the tools and the traits that if they continue to grow in 2025, that they'll be very high picks in 26.
Another area, the Browns need playmakers. So let's talk a little bit about running backs. Deep running back class. Who are some good fits that you like, assuming the Browns go 3rd, 4th, 5th round with a running back?
The dream is Travion Henderson from Ohio State. I just think that a guy that is a big play home run hitter that is very patient, has good vision. Those are the guys I'm focused on. You're talking about going back to Kevin's, wide zone scheme, and that's dependent on running backs that can allow their blockers to pull and climb to the second level and set up and create lanes, and they're able to hit those lanes quickly and get to a top speed. Henderson's got that home run hitting speed. I like RJ Harvey from UCF a lot. I think he's a fantastic zone runner. Doesn't have that super like 4.3 speed, but he's got 4.4 speed, and he gets to it in a hurry, and he's just really smart, good vision. If you want to wait a little bit later and you're looking for one of those guys, Jarquez Hunter, the running back from Auburn, is another one of those guys with great vision. I'm really targeting these guys that can see and identify these holes, because like watching Nick Chubb in his prime with the Browns and Kevin Stefanski, it was that patience where it was like, okay, where is there it is, and then you take off. And I think those guys, RJ Harvey and Devin Neal from Kansas as well, I think those guys have really good vision and really explosive speed.
All right, so who are some guys, regardless of position, that make sense to you for the Browns later in this draft?
Well, one guy that I come back to quite a bit, especially after the Senior Bowl, is where's Central Arkansas? I couldn't remember. Defensive lineman David Walker, the edge rusher from Central Arkansas, incredibly prolific career. Was a guy that probably he had some offers to go to a bigger school and do some things. And get kind of more on the radar. He just really liked where he was. I think he's got a ton of tools, big, physical, fast, disruptive pass rusher. He's just going to take a little bit of time to, develop at the next level, having played at Central Arkansas, not really playing for a big program, but he's another reason. You're talking about this guy in the 5th or 6th round, and this is a guy that has 37 sacks over the past 3 years. And that's how deep this defensive line class is. So there's a lot of those guys that have all this upside and that are going to get pushed back just because of how talented the rest of the class is. And then if you're looking at tight end, I like the depth of this tight end class. There's a lot of I would call maybe unproven, doesn't have a lot of production guys. Luke Lachey, the tight end from Iowa, he looked a couple of years ago, he's had some injuries and some issues in that offense, but a couple of years ago, he was looking like the next Sam Laporta, the next tight end from Iowa that comes into the NFL and is really good for 8 to 10 years. Good route runner, physical, good reliable hands, not a ton of production, maybe needs some time to grow, but definitely has traits to be a nice player.
All right, before I let you go, if Myles Garrett is moved before the draft, now probably isn't going to happen because there's a $36 million dead cap hit. Is there a move in the draft that you think might signal that, hey, maybe the Browns are going to trade him?
I think if you see it look like they're really trying to get future capital, like if there is some aggressive trading back where when I look at some of the trade backs I've done for the OBR, it'll be I'll trade back and I'll get a second round pick this year. Yeah, I'll get a future asset, but I also get a really high premium top 50 pick. If you're seeing guys like them trading back and being a lot of that capital that they're getting is in next year, that could signify, hey, we want to put all of our eggs into the basket once we get some more money off the books and something like that. That could signify it, because I don't see them getting aggressive if they're trading Myles Garrett. Like maybe they think that they can get a bunch of picks and change a bunch of things and lose him and still be competitive. But these are guys that, if the Browns win 3 games in 2025, these guys are not going to be here again. So I don't see them wanting to do anything that looks like a tank job. But yeah, if they push a lot of eggs into the 26th basket, it could mean something's coming.
As always, great stuff, Jacob Roach. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
Jacob Roach, make sure you check him out. Orange and Brown Report always does a lot of really good stuff relative to the draft and the Browns in particular. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout, talking about draft. Other side of the break, Lance Reisland with draft-eligible wide receivers the Browns might be interested in. That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. Full Court Action is a half-hour devoted exclusively to men's and women's basketball from across the Mid-American Conference. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Bacon. Join me at 6:30 Tuesday nights, and we'll meet the coaches and players from the Mid-American Conference who are making an impact in basketball. Full Court Action will spotlight the top plays and performances from all across the Mid-American Conference with some historical action as well. Catch Full Court Action Tuesday nights at 6:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. We continue talking Browns and NFL draft combine coming up. Then it will be the draft. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland, film breakdown, video analysis. Lance, we've done quarterbacks, a couple levels of them. Today, wide receivers. And, we've talked about it. Browns need some playmakers. That would be wide receivers.
Well, I'll tell you what, with obviously the Myles Garrett situation and everything going on, depends on where the Browns are going to draft and what they're going to do. Now, if they stay at 2, I'm not sure anybody but Ted McMillan, the kid out of Arizona, would be worth the number 2 pick. In fact, I don't even know if he'd be worth the number 2 pick. But if they trade down and get more picks, if they are in a true rebuild, there's some receivers that really make sense for what they need. Obviously, they have Jerry Jeudy. They're paying Jerry Jeudy very good money. Jerry Jeudy's their number 1 guy outside. You and I have talked about it for a long time. They still need to find a guy who can do certain things from both inside and outside, and a guy who can get them easy yards in the slot so they don't have to be so perfect on offense to score points.
All right, the first guy we're going to look at, an SEC guy from Missouri, 5'10", 208 pounds, Luther Burden. What do you see when you look at him?
Well, Luther Burden is a guy who had tremendous catch radius. He's really, really good after catch. Now, here's a guy, he's probably one of my favorite breakdowns this year with his ability to do certain things. You're going to see him on a sweep here. He could do the things that they wanted Elijah Moore to do, but this guy's got a little bit more thickness to him. He's 210 pounds, 5'11", really, really, really explosive after catch. He gets from 0 to fast really quick. He's just as quick as he is fast. You see a little return route, his ability to put his foot in the ground, get vertical. He's an easy yards guy. Now, he's a guy that you can move around. He's a guy that can play some tailback. He's got some Deebo Samuel in him. It's hard to be that guy. Deebo is a special talent, but this is a guy who's got the body type to do it. Really, really explosive. Numbers weren't as great this year because the offense wasn't as good and the team wasn't as good, but this is an explosive guy. One of my favorite film breakdowns that I've done this year. Really, really good fit for what the Browns need. They need that number 2 in the slot that could be a number 1 with talent, and this is a guy that can do it.
So Luther Burden from Missouri. Again, from the SEC. This guy is, the next guy's a guy that Browns fans will recognize the name from Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka. 6'1", 205 is what he is listed as. What did you see with Egbuka?
Well, you're going to see with Egbuka here. So first thing is you're going to see a seam route where he just does a great job of, they're so well coached at Ohio State. He goes with late hands. You're going to see another look at this route from a different angle, and he just gets vertical. He's a 4-3 guy, and he goes with late hands. And what that means is he doesn't show his hands till late. Then you're going to be able to do this easy yard stuff. So this is a little RPO, little play action, and again, really, really fast. Now, Egbuka doesn't get as much credit as he deserved. He's got, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. and he's playing with the generational talent Jeremiah Smith. But this is a first-round pick, a mid-first-round pick to high first-round pick who has great potential to potentially be a number one receiver. He's 6'1", he's 205, like you said. The thing you like about him is that he's really polished. Now, he hasn't played a lot outside, so that would be something he's got to work on. But this is a guy, fundamentally, mechanics, he can run all the routes. He's got a great catch radius. Compared to Burden, who's more of a space guy, this is the receiver that I talk about with the ability to get off the line of scrimmage, at the catch point, and yards after catch. Really, really good, thick body, will be able to stay healthy. I like Emeka Mbuka. I think he'd be a great fit with Jerry Jeudy.
So Ibuka, again, has played, you mentioned Jeremiah Smith, Marvin Harrison before that. So he's had that alpha wide receiver in front of him pretty much his entire career at Ohio State. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in the NFL. Ohio State wide receivers have done really good in the NFL as an understatement there. Next guy is a guy that we saw plenty in the Big Ten. Tez Johnson also had a pretty good Senior Bowl week as well.
Well, you're going to talk about a guy here. This is a in-space guy, right? So you're going to see him put the foot in the ground. Really, really good. I've used the word sudden and twitchy a lot, which is a fancy word of saying he's just really hard to tackle. As my dad used to say, you would lose a game of tag in a phone booth with Tez Johnson. This is a guy who has stop and start ability like as good as anybody in the draft. You know, he played with Dylan Gabriel, did a great job getting the ball in space. Again, though he's undersized at 5'10", 165, this is the guy who's fast on the track, but he's also football fast. He's also football twitchy, which means he gets from 0 to 100 really, really quick. I love this guy in space. The Senior Bowl pushed him ahead of Restrepo for me because he did it against really good people. Really hard to cover. Now, again, he's not a guy who's going to be inside, outside. He's a guy who's going to be a slot. He's a guy who can get the ball in space and make things happen. That's what the Browns need. So the Browns need to find a guy like Tez Johnson, not worried about routes, not worried about technique, fundamentals, a guy who's explosive with the football, who you throw a little route like this to, and he gets vertical and gets you big plays. That's what the Browns need.
So our fourth guy that we're going to look at, and you mentioned him a little bit, Miami's Xavier Restrepo, played with Cam Ward, who the quarterback who's 1 or 2, depending on your boards. What did you see from Restrepo when you looked at him?
Well, you know, it's funny because he's fast, but he's not overly fast. He's not real big. But here's a smash route he runs, a big route. Obviously then he runs a really savvy little out route here where he eyes up the linebacker, keeps him inside. So again, you're going to see on this route, he's at the point, he's going to run a corner route, just a smash concept, high-low, does a really good job of finding space. And then again, really savvy with his routes. He understands how to run routes against coverage. Now, the thing that will probably push Restrepo down is that he's not blazingly fast. He's not big. But there's some guys who are past the measurements. There's some guys who make plays. And this is the guy, he runs well enough. His routes are incredible. This is a football player. If you think about Cooper Kupp, that's who I think about when I watch this guy. His ability just to get open. And the reason he does that is because he's super smart. Now, I don't think he has the physical skills as the first 3 guys that I have on my board. But I love this guy in the slot. I love this guy for the Browns, this ability to get open, QB friendly. Obviously, the Browns are going to have a new QB probably again. So the Browns need a guy who get open. And that's the best thing I can say about Restrepo. He gets open against everybody all the time. So really good player. Probably slide to a 3rd or 4th round because of the measurables. I think he's a steal.
Yeah, and again, the Browns need some playmakers. To your point, and I know Johnson ran better at the Senior Bowl, but when you watched Restrepo in one-on-one drills, nobody could cover him. The best cornerbacks, I mean, he was breaking ankles and he was making moves on the best cornerbacks.
Well, and that comes down to his ability. He's if you think about Amari Cooper always getting open without elite speed, it's the ability he does everything well. He gets off the line of scrimmage. So if it's zone, he knows how to attack the back shoulder, the blind spot of corners. He's really good in a short area, so that short area burst, so he can get off jams. You can use him in the slot, which means he'll be off the line of scrimmage, which means it's harder to jam him. And the thing you like about him is that he understands. There's nothing worse for a quarterback that a guy just runs through coverage and is just being an athlete. Restrepo is a guy who understands what he's seeing, and at the NFL level, with all those coverages and all that talent, you have to be able to get off the line of scrimmage, and you got to find those holes and those windows. And then if you're going to guard him in man, obviously you put him in the slot. he's a tough match for a safety or an outside linebacker. So I think he's a guy that really fits what the Browns need. The Browns need football players. They have to get past, in my opinion, measurables, and all those things are important. But you need guys, when you watch the film, they make plays. And these 4 guys make plays when you put the film on over and over and over.
So, yeah, and you hear people relative to the Browns, well, they need a speed guy next to Jerry Jeudy. That line of thinking scares me, because the first thing that comes to mind when I think of that is Anthony Schwartz. And, we're not on an obstacle course, and we're not running track. It's football. And to your point, I want to see guys that make plays on a football field.
Well, there's some guys this is really deep. So skill-wise, there's depth at every position on skill, right? There's great running backs, great tight ends, really good depth at receiver. So, but I'm with you, and it's, being out there at practice every day now, the thing that you see is obviously you got to have some measurables to survive. And I believe that. And I had some of my friends always used to say, like, a BCS body. You got to be big, you got to be fast, you got to be strong. But you also need some production. Those weight room warriors are great, and you have to be successful, but you need guys who understand how to play football and play fast on the football field. And playing fast on the football field is being smart and understanding. You cannot be, you have to be intelligent to play fast. And that's what the Browns need. They need guys who can play fast on the football field, and are productive. And the measurables are important, don't get me wrong, but I want to see guys make plays when it counts against really good players. And to your point of Restrepo, he did it. He's undersized. He doesn't run well. No one covered him at the Senior Bowl. Those are the best corners and safeties in the country. So these guys that are going to prove they can make plays on Sunday afternoon.
And again, you feel it's kind of a deep draft, so I would imagine there's going to be guys early day 3 that end up being productive in the NFL.
Well, those 3 positions, like I said, receiver, tight end, and running back, there are some outstanding players. I have some guys who, I don't really do the first, second, third. I try to grade it, and just guys who can make plays and guys who can play on Sunday. There's a lot of guys that will be taken on day 3 at those 3 positions that will be very productive as rookies because of their skill set, the offenses they played in, what they can do with the ball after they catch it, the running backs, the receivers. So there's some guys, and, obviously they have Jerry Jeudy. What's their answer at tight end if they're going back to 12 and 13 personnel? What are they doing at run back if Nick Chubb's not what Nick Chubb was? So they have a lot, obviously the quarterback position, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, there's a lot of things going on, but you can't sit around. You got to get to work, and you got to figure out what you need and go attack. And that's what the Browns got to be doing now. They got to figure out, how do they get Myles back if that's possible? And then how do they fill these holes that they have? Because they are closer than people think. And I will say that I get I'm lucky enough to watch a lot of film. They got a lot of good players. They just need a couple holes that need to be filled.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, film breakdown, video analysis of 4 wide receivers to pay attention to at the Combine and listen out for when the Browns are picking in this year's draft. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.